In the forest clearing, a family, mother, father, and son are having lunch. The boy is gazing at the starry sky with awe, while the mother pours the contents of her glass into the fire and heads to the tent. The father offers the boy some cocoa, and when he falls asleep, he carries him to join the mother. Morning comes. In another forest camp, a young woman greets the dawn with a pistol in hand, but then returns to the van, hides the gun in a box, and lies down in bed next to her husband. He greets her, congratulates her on the start of a new day, and notes that she is wearing a cross she hasn't worn in a long time. Ryan invites his wife to watch the sunrise, but she declines, promising to watch the sunset instead. Later, they start breakfast, and Holly doesn't understand why he is so sentimental about the last few hours, as it no longer matters. She gives him some sweets she had saved for him, and he shares with her some very tasty but terribly unhealthy sugar buns. Later, Ryan suggests visiting his wife's mother, as there's still time. But Holly refuses. They've already said everything to each other. Later, the man gets busy with his daily chores, constantly glancing at the thundering sky. The radio reports that the authorities expect something to happen today, but so far, nothing has changed. The story shifts back 7 months when Holly and Ryan visit the woman's friend to meet her new boyfriend, Brad. The party is in full swing, and the families are joyfully meeting each other. Ryan confesses that he works in behavioral economics, to which Brad explains that he studies space. In the midst of the fun, Brad receives a call from work, and Ryan notices that the man becomes very upset and tense, as if he had heard something unpleasant. In the present, Ryan and Holly settle in a scenic clearing, reminiscing about the time spent together. They are sure they've had a good life and wouldn't want to change anything. On their way back to the camp, the couple suddenly sees a dog whose name Roxy is written on its collar. It seems to be calling them somewhere, and they follow the animal. Soon they arrive at a clearing where a closed tent stands. While Holly looks around, Ryan peeks inside and sees a family who have taken their own lives. He zips the entrance and asks his wife not to look at the grim sight. It seems that the woman isn't surprised by what happened. Roxy goes with the couple back to their camp, but suddenly runs ahead. Ryan and Holly search for her and come across an elderly woman accompanied by 2 teenagers. Carla knows Roxy and her owners well and thinks the couple lives with them, but the man delivers the grim news, which doesn't seem to shock the older woman. She laments that everyone deals with difficult times in their own way. She offers to pray for the souls of the departed family. The people form a circle and pray for those who have gone to God. Afterward, Carla invites the couple to meet the other inhabitants of their forest camp. There are many of them, and they are never bored. However, Holly declines, and her husband supports her. The couple stops by the lake, where a bottle of champagne is stashed near a distinctive rock, but Holly asks to save it, and Ryan agrees. His thoughts again drift back to the day the party was interrupted by the government's terrifying announcement of the discovery of an unusual phenomenon. In the present, Holly swims in the lake, enjoying the beauty of the surrounding nature and gazing at the sky. Suddenly, someone grabs her and pulls her underwater, but it turns out to be Ryan, who decided to play a prank on his wife. While the couple embraces, shouts are heard nearby, and another young couple jumps into the water. After getting out, they introduce themselves as Jean and Gabriella and ask if they can borrow their fishing gear. Unlike Holly and Ryan, they've only recently arrived and had been trying to survive in the city, but things didn't go as planned. Holly and Ryan say goodbye to their new acquaintances and head back to the camp, while the others start fishing. Later, Ryan is starting a fire when Jean and Gabriella return with freshly caught fish and insist on having lunch together. Ryan feels a bit uneasy around the newcomers, but learning that John is a programmer calms him down a bit. Holly tells Gabriella that they've been together for 5 years and had hoped to grow old together, but alas. After lunch, Jean and Gabriella say goodbye, thanking the couple for their dignified behavior, noting that many people have changed drastically in light of recent events. Holly watches them leave and recalls how, after hearing the news, she immediately tried to call her mother, but she was out of reach, and chaos had already begun in the streets. In the present, Carla's grandchildren come to Ryan and Holly's camp, inviting them to dinner with the forest hermits. But the couple declines again, not wanting to waste a single moment of their remaining time. Later in the day, Ryan is tending to their small garden when he hears his wife scream. Rushing into the trailer, he sees a hole in the roof, pierced by a small meteorite. They step outside and see a metal pot with a hole punched clean through. The couple realizes that it has begun. Despite Ryan's suggestion to go to Holly's mother, she asks him to stay, recalling a song with the lyrics about how it would have been nice to meet earlier so they could have loved each other longer. Her husband embraces her, hiding his tears. He remembers how the first reports on TV announced that the asteroid would strike Earth on October 14th, just before midnight. Scientists can predict such catastrophes nowadays, but this time, 2 large bodies collided and shattered into several fragments, one of which was headed straight for Earth. Although some say there's a chance of survival, this asteroid is 3 times the size of the one that wiped out the dinosaurs. It's potentially the end of humanity. A couple of hours before the end, millions of small fragments will slice through the atmosphere, creating a spectacular light show. But it will also be the last thing people ever see. Later, driving through the city, the couple witnesses clashes, fights, and people driven mad. They buy essential supplies when Brad calls out to them. Ryan asks him questions, but he advises them to just leave the city. The couple exits the store and witnesses a confrontation between conspiracy theorists and those who believe the government is behind it all. This becomes the last straw, convincing them to leave. In the present, Ryan is practicing shooting at bottles when Gabriella emerges from the woods. She asks for some alcohol, asks strange questions about other weapons and the number of bullets they have, and then hints at a possible intimate encounter. Holly interrupts the scene and leads her husband back into the trailer. While Gabriella waits in the clearing, she suggests to her husband that they take the woman up on her offer, as it might be their last romantic adventure. But Ryan is outraged at the very idea, as he loves his wife deeply. They bring Gabriella a couple of bottles, and she confesses that Jean has planned something very difficult that he has always wanted to do. He needs to use the last hours before the end to make it happen. Holly thinks it sounds ominous. Gabriella says goodbye and leaves. Later, Ryan finds pills outside and recalls how, after the world learned of the impending disaster, he came home to find an unconscious Holly in the bathtub. They managed to save her then, and now he sees those pills again. However, Holly comforts her husband, explaining that she wasn't planning on leaving him alone. Later, they lie in the clearing, watching the sky, which is frequently lit up by meteor flashes. By evening, they are back to their tasks when Holly calls her husband into the trailer, where a crying Gabriella is waiting. She explains that Jean has gone mad and beaten her. As she hugs Ryan, she pulls out his pistol and holds the couple at gunpoint. The woman forces them outside, where John is already waiting, announcing that he plans to take Holly. He mocks them, ridiculing their emotions, and Gabriella advises him to shoot Ryan in the stomach. Jean likes the suggestion and raises his arm, but suddenly Roxy attacks him. Holly strikes Gabriella with a shovel, and the couple runs while Jean kills the dog and then chases after them. At this point, Ryan and Holly flag down a car, but as soon as they get in, a shot rings out. Sometime later, Ryan comes to his senses near a crashed pickup truck. The driver is dead, he is handcuffed to the steering wheel, and Holly is missing. The man manages to retrieve a hatchet and free himself. He runs to the forest camp Carla had mentioned. The people there are gathering for dinner. At first glance, everything is calm and cheerful, but as Ryan approaches, one of the men, a former police officer, takes aim at him. However, Carla asks him to let Ryan go. The people listen to his story of what happened but say they can't help. They know Jean and Gabriella, whom they had to expel, but they offer to turn to God. Angered, Ryan leaves. One of the girls catches up to him and tells him that Jean and Gabriella had always been criminals, and when they learned about the end of the world, they completely lost their minds. She directs Ryan to the right place, and Carla appears, handing him a rifle, asking him to be careful. Ryan sets out on his way. Meanwhile, in Jen and Gabriella's camp, a tied-up Holly tries to free her hands. But Jean notices this. The woman asks to be let go as she doesn't want her husband to be left alone. But John laughs at her, believing that by taking lives, he is getting closer to God. Gabriella approaches Holly with a knife when a shout from Ryan echoes through the forest. Holly, having freed her hands, pushes Gabriella into the fire, and while she screams, Holly runs into the woods. Jean lifts his girlfriend, and both of them arm themselves before setting off to catch the runaway. Ryan, in turn, is tracking the couple. He sees Gabriella with a crossbow and shoots her. Jean, hearing the shot, heads in that direction. Ryan shoots at him but misses. A shootout begins, but Ryan's rifle jams, and as Jean prepares to kill him, Holly picks up Gabriella's crossbow and shoots Jean in the back. Holly takes her cross back from the dead Gabriella, and the couple returns to the camp where they first bury Roxy. They shower, listening to the rumbling overhead and watching the fiery flashes. Then, for the last time, they make love. Meanwhile, Jean regains consciousness and heads toward Ryan and Holly's camp. The sky is increasingly lit by meteors. The couple heads to the lake to retrieve the precious bottle of champagne and face the end of the world with dignity. But as Ryan pulls it out, John attacks him, plunging a knife into his chest. Leaving the dying man by the stone, Jean grabs Holly, but she breaks free. She runs to the forest camp, where she finds all its inhabitants dead. Holly searches the tents, finds the ex-cop's gun, and steps out to meet the killer, who is also there. But Jean, losing strength, can no longer pursue her, and the woman walks away. The man sits down at a table and samples the poisoned food, while Holly runs as fast as she can toward her husband. She manages to embrace him while he is still alive, and Jean falls and dies, looking at the sky. The couple kisses, watching as a huge burning asteroid flies overhead, and the Earth disappears in an explosion. The director's concept is intriguing, but the execution is lacking. There's a shortage of drama, a sense of doom, and despair. Since the story lacks details, there's no sense of involvement, and therefore no empathy. Despite the attempt to frighten the viewer with the end of the world, it doesn't feel real.